So you've applied for a job, you've got your resume already, now it's time for an interview. But what do you need to remember when you check that mirror before you head out the door? Well, Randy Wooden is the director of the Professional Center at Goodwill of Northwest North Carolina, here to talk about your appearance, especially during an interview. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I think we all feel like we dress nicely to go to an interview and you feel great about yourself, but you have to keep a lot of opinions in mind, right?
Well, you do, and we've talked this before. 55% of interpersonal communication is body language. And that's not just how you stand, not just your handshake and your facial expressions, it's also your appearance. So there's a lot that goes into that. And I may be wading into very subjective waters here. So put your seatbelt on.
Everybody's got a different opinion, but you want to
do.
make sure that yours kind of matches the
Very
person you're
subjective.
interviewing
Know
with.
your audience. If you have to remember one thing from today, when in doubt, leave it out.
Okay.
Here's the thing, and we may have a different conversation 10 years from now, just like 10 years ago we may have been having a different conversation, but I think as we all know, societal trends have changed. Think about church, ball games, you saw suit and ties and dresses. In the workplace, it was professional dress. Now it's business casual. The lines have blurred a little, but something that's come up, and a friend of mine raised this with me about a month ago, he asked just what was my opinion, and so I wrote an article, and today we want to talk about tattoos, piercings, and really anything that could detract from your message. And so here's a thought for you. That first interview, that's your first impression. Remember, 55% body language. Now, I'm not talking about the person. You've seen photos on the internet of 100 or 200 piercings and the whole, that's a whole different animal. And we don't, that is a different topic entirely. I'm talking about the person that may have 1 or 2 piercings, maybe has a tattoo on the neck, some on the arms, that kind of a thing. Cover them up. This is your first impression. Take time to cover the tattoos and remove the piercing. And here's why. Don't make the assumption, because you don't know your audience, don't make the assumption that it's going to be fine. It shows, if I'm the employer, it shows that you respect me, and then you can ask about the policy once you're there. But don't walk in with that. I can see the hole, and I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, and you're in the door at that point. You're already talking to them, and you want to make sure that it continues. You get that job offer, and sometimes giving a little bit maybe is what you're saying?
Well, yeah, and look, I shave my head. I can't change that. I'm bald.
Yeah.
I am just the way I am.
But that's a different style than years ago,
It is, but
right?
see, I started that back in the 90s, and there were very few Caucasian men that had a shaved head. I remember, and I worked in a professional environment, suit and tie. My boss took me aside and said, Randy, I think you may scare people.
Really?
Yeah,
and
no, I have that effect on people.
Well, okay, but that shows how styles have changed.
It has, exactly. And today you don't think anything of it.
Sure.
So people with tattoos and piercings aren't bad or evil people. I think as an employer you need to factor that in as you begin to look at how do I project this person with the company. If they're in front of my customers, then maybe the appearance bar is a little higher. If they're at a computer or on the phone or maybe loading in the warehouse, their appearance is not as critical as some other personal traits. And so again, as the employer, you've got to look at that and say, is this person somebody that I can work with? But if they're going to be in front of people, then that's a different level. Think about cologne. If I splash it on and shake your hand, now your hand smells like my face. Not a good thing.
Yeah.
Same with hairstyle. If you've got all kinds of color in your hair, it detracts from the message. Just like typos on a resume, it's an avoidable thing that, in my view, you ought to avoid at least at that first interview, because you want to get a second interview.
Get them to like you, and then they'll see what a valuable employee you are, and the rest of it.
Same thing with dress code, particularly women. If they dress very provocatively, you know, that's a distraction. And do you really want that to be part of the decision-making process? I would argue no. Make it about your skills, your integrity, your character, and get the job first, and then maybe look to see how you can fit in with the rest of the culture there.
Okay, Randy, thanks very much. Great ideas as always. And he mentioned the article there. You can always find that in the journal, so check that out. And if you want to get in touch with Randy, reach him at 336-776-6829, or drop him an email, and that's at procenter@Goodwill, NWNC for Goodwill, Northwest North Carolina, goodwillnwnc.org.